What's up, guys? We have a very special video for you today. Today, we're going to be going over some different routes that all wide receivers need to know. These are routes that they're going to require you to run at the next level. So these are routes that you're better off learning now so you don't have to learn them later. So I hope this video gives you guys a ton of value, but also, fellas, if you're a receiver or a quarterback and would like to train with us this offseason, we are coming out to 15 different cities across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. Our first two camps are going to be in San Francisco, California, and then Miami, Florida. Both of those camps are completely sold out. But then we'll be coming out to Las Vegas, Nevada, Charlotte, North Carolina, Portland, Oregon, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Chicago, Illinois, Buffalo, New York. Then we'll be heading out to Houston, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, Boise, Idaho, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys would like to train with us, if you're local to any one of those cities, we would love to have you out to one of our off-season camps. So check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out there. It's where you could get all the information. Again, very first link in that description below. Let's get started with this video. All right, guys, so this first route that I want to talk about today is something called a come back and go route. So pretty much it's exactly how it sounds. You run up, you were going to act like you were running a comeback. We were trying to get this DB to drive on the comeback route. This is usually worked best when this defense is in like some kind of deep third or deep fourth coverage where this DB is trying to prevent a deep route, but he is susceptible to an underneath breaking route like a comeback. So we're trying to sell a comeback, get this DB to crash, and then we turn up field and go. Very similar to a stop and go, but the thing that's a little bit different is the foot placement, kind of the hip drop and the hip turn, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So I'm going to play this full speed, then we'll break it down. So he comes off the ball, snaps down, pivots his feet to get that DB to crash, make him feel like it's a comeback. Obviously, ball's very, very underthrown. Great job by this receiver coming back to the ball, but you see the amount of separation that he is able to get. So let's talk about it. So like we said, anytime that you are running a double move, whether that's like, a slant and go, whether that's some other double moves that we're going to discuss throughout this video, whether it's a corner post, whatever it is, the first part of the break has to look the exact same as if you were running a regular route, right? So if you're running a comeback route versus this type of coverage, what you'd want to do is you would want to try to get to this DB's blind spot, right? So this blind spot is an area where this DB, it's kind of the area where the DB can't see, if you will. Area between the DB's back and between the sidelines. So that's where you ultimately want to be at the start of this double move. So when we break into a comeback, to be able to decelerate, because on any type of double move like a hitch and go or maybe a stop and go, you have to be able to decelerate yourself to get this DB to stop his back pedal and try to drive on this first route. So to be able to decelerate effectively, we have to do something called snapping down. So let's say the inside foot here is the foot that he's going to snap down on. This is what I recommend for a comeback and go route, is to snap down on your inside foot, and I'll explain why in a second. But when he snaps down, the most important thing is that we are aggressive with this hip drop, right? Anytime that you're running a double move, like we said, we have to make it look like the first initial move to a T. So when you're running up into this break, you got to have some speed. You got to be selling vertical. You got to be closing space with the DB. And the only way you can decelerate while running with some speed is by being violent with your hips. I'm talking like there is a string attached to your chin, and you're trying to pretend like somebody took that string and pulled it straight down to your knee as quickly as possible. Because when you change your center of gravity like this and you get low, the magic spot I would say is you want to try to literally touch your chest to your quad, and you want your lower body to be at a 90-degree position. Chest to quad, 90-degree position. And when you get to that chest to quad 90-degree position violently, there's some explosion there. There's an element of you stopping on a dime that alerts this DB. So now, the most important step of this comeback and go is not this step. I would say that step sets this up. The most important step is going to be your second step. Because on a comeback, what type of break is it? It's a 45-degree angle break. So we got to make sure that my hips, my body, my feet are all selling like I'm trying to come out on this 45-degree angle. So you snap, but watch his second step. You see how it's like a slight pivot. His toes are not facing forward. His hips are not facing forward. He starts to pivot that second step, because when you pivot, watch what that does to his hips. His hips start to turn. On a comeback and go, it's honestly, fellas, 4 steps. If you do anything more than 4 steps on the break point, this is why I like you breaking with the inside foot. If you do anything more than 4 steps, I feel like it takes a little bit too long. Because remember, we have a quarterback here. It's not just you and the DB. We have to get out of my route and maintain timing with the quarterback so he doesn't get sacked or move on to another read, right? So it's got to be 4 steps. So it's a snap step, pivot step, hook step, jab step. So it's snap, pivot, hook, jab. And the pivot step is what starts to turn your hips and what sells this thing a little bit more. Because even when a DB's in zone coverage like this, out of the corner of his eyes, he's reading that body language. And especially if you're getting into this blind spot, closing the distance with him, and he feels you start to turn in this blind spot or sees it out of the corner of his eye, that's what's more likely to get him to drive. So we snap down, you see how he pivots. Now the pivot step allows your hook step to be in a position to where you could push off of it down the 45-degree angle. Jab step, you see how his hips, his shoulders, everything's selling like he is running this 45-degree. That's what gets this DB to drive, and then again, we could create space. Now on this come back and go route, what kills a lot of wide receivers is they will get separation like this, even on like a simple hitch and go. Maybe you don't have a come back and go in your playbook. Maybe you don't have a stop and go, or whatever it is, whatever double move you have like this, you have to make sure that you keep your head down initially. A lot of guys will feel this separation. They'll get over anxious like, oh, I got him. And then they start to look back for the ball right away. But the second you start to turn your head back, what does your body do? Your body raises up only naturally, right? It's hard for me to look back and not have my body raise up. And that slows us down. When this DB gets beat, what is he doing? Oh shit, I got beat. Let me put my head down, pump my arms, and try to close the space and recover. So we can't let him do that by looking back too early. Let's keep my head down. Let's make sure I drive for at least 3 to 5 steps. I would say at least 5 to 6 yards, and then we find that ball. Just so if I get separation, I am also keeping separation. So this is a perfect come back and go route right here. This is complete teach tape on this route. If you guys have this route in your playbook, this is exactly how you want to run this route. And a lot of people will think like, they'll see this route be ran and they'll be like, oh, well, the quarterback's got to have all day. It's situational, right? Like let's say, for example, you got 2 tight ends in your formation. Like before we get into this next route, let's talk about this. Let's say you got the center right here, quarterback, and let's say you got 2 tight ends, right? So that means you only have 2 receivers out wide. If you have one running back, that means we have 7-man protection. So if that defense is only bringing 4 or 5 guys, quarterback has a lot of time for a route like that come back and go route. So every time you hear people say that, or hear people say, oh, well, that route takes too long, it's never going to work. It's situational, guys, just like this next route. So this next route is going to be a simple out and up, or a chair route, as some people might call it. Now, there are a couple things that you want to try to keep in mind to get separation on this out and up every time, even against a disciplined DB, right? So let's watch what Ricky Pearsall does here on this out route. So he cuts, and the most important thing is that you guys do not change your speed and change your stride on a break like this. So an out and up, obviously you're going to be cutting off of your inside foot. On an out and up, usually, I've seen it ran a little bit different, but usually what it is you will cut off of your inside foot, and then it is 3 steps on the out route. Now, those 3 steps, reason why we take 3 is to keep timing with the quarterback, and I feel like it's just a little bit faster, more explosive when we take 3. So reason why we take on those 3 steps to sell it. A few things. Number 1, your head's got to snap around. I'm not saying that you got to make eye contact with the quarterback, but you got to at least snap your eyes. If you were looking straight at the floor, I've seen a lot of DBs who honestly maybe aren't the most disciplined in the world because they're watching a receiver's head and his eyes. But I've seen a lot of receivers do this route, and they'll run hard, whatever, but they'll be looking straight at the ground. DB does not think we are getting the ball when your head is looking at the ground. Because a disciplined DB even, he's watching your hips, but like he's reading your entire body language. If your eyes are at the floor, he's not going to be thinking that you're getting the ball. Right? So we want to make sure that we snap my eyes to the quarterback. Second point, and snapping your eyes helps with this, you want your hips and your shoulders committed to the break. So if I'm running a 90-degree out and up, I want my hips and shoulders to be 90 degrees facing the sideline as my eyes are trying to look at that quarterback. I don't got to make eye contact with him, but I at least got to turn my head to the inside. If I could do that, that takes care of business with my upper body. Now, when we break to the 3 steps on the out route, those 3 steps that you take, this is what I would say a lot of receivers struggle with because they lack confidence in this cut, right? Maybe they lack ankle stability, maybe they lack leg strength, they lack balance, whatever it is. And that's for a different topic. That's for a different day to talk about how you can improve those things. If you guys would like some drills to improve those things, by all means, leave that in the comment section below. I could send you some from our YouTube channel that you can do to work on that. But a lot of receivers are hesitant. They're hesitant to cut at a fast speed. So when they break to this double move, they cut, but their strides aren't going anywhere. What they'll do is they'll take choppy steps, and that's not going to get this DB to drive. Nobody runs an out route with choppy steps. You got to run with long steps. Now, another thing DBs are taught to look for is a change in speed, especially if you're a double move heavy team. Guys, DBs are very smart players. They have to be able to play the DB position at a high level. So they watch a ton of film. And if when you run a double move, you break to an out route and it is slow as hell because you're preparing for the break, maybe you're taking long strides, maybe you're looking back to the inside, but when he feels that change of speed, he is not going to bite because he's not threatened by the out route. So when I cut to that out route, it's about body language. It's about body language, which is eyes, hips, and shoulders. It's about stride length, and it's about speed. If you could do that, and by speed, I don't mean an out-of-control full speed. I mean just like a maintained speed. The same speed that you have in, I want the same speed out. If you could do those 3 things, that is going to get a DB to crash. And another thing I want you to pay attention to, after he gets him, you see how he's here. head is down, not looking back for the ball right away. If you're in like the red zone, maybe like 15, 20-yard line going in, yeah, you got to look back with your eyes a little bit sooner than this, but let's keep that head down so I don't lose that separation. On any double move, that goes for a sluggo, goes for an out and up, that goes for that come back and go. Keep the head down so we can keep separation and find that ball. Okay, so now this next route here is going to be from CeeDee Lamb. So this is, I really honestly want to talk about the move that he uses at the top of the break here, because this is, this is a situation that we talk about every now and then on this channel, but this is a move that is very, very advanced that I think a lot of people could get down. It's a very, very good way to get separation when you have to run a 10-yard out versus outside shade zone and you're in the red zone, right? So let's watch this full speed, then we'll break it down. So Lamb comes off, does a little hezzy move, gives a jab inside, and then you see he's able to win on this out route. So let's talk about this. Now, normally, because they're in the red zone, right? Like this is like, I want to say they're on like the 15, right? It's a 5, 10. Yeah, they're on the 15-yard line. So if they're on the 15-yard line, normally, like, let's say we're in the middle of the field. Let's say we're at the 50, right? This DB's outside shade. If you had to run a 10-yard out, what you would do is you would attack his inside shoulder and inside hip. You would run hard. You'd run full stride, full speed. Eyes would be forward. And our goal is to get this DB to open up his hips so we could slip under him, right? The reason why we wouldn't want to try to run around him is that this DB's outside leverage, right? So the second you run to this like blind spot, remember we talked about that in the first clip, if you try to run around him, he's going to keep his leverage. He's going to be right over the top. And when you break to that out route, you're cutting down the field space that the quarterback has. We want to give that quarterback as much room as possible to throw me open and lead me. So if we're in the middle of the field, we're going to try to sell vertical. We're going to run hard, head down, get him to flip open, and then bam, I slip under. And I got all this space for my quarterback. Even if I don't get a ton of separation, that's an easy throw for that quarterback. Take it from me. It's a very easy throw. But if I'm in the red zone, what do? I can't put my head down and sell like I'm running a deep seam or a deep vertical. This DB's not going to believe that because we're in the red zone. He's smart. He's going to be patient. So what we have to sell is we have to sell some kind of inside breaking move at his inside shoulder and inside hip. We can't go to the blind spot because then we will lose spacing on the play. So what Lamb decides to do is he does this little like hezzy skip into a like inside jab, right? So you could do something like a rocker step, which is where you step with your right foot, then you fake with the left. It's just like a 1-2 at the top of the break, acting like you're running a post, right? You could do that. This is a little bit more advanced version of that, like a little slower tempo. So a hezzy move is like you step twice with a specific foot. So in this case, it's CeeDee Lamb's right foot. Like you guys probably see like Devontae Adams off the line do that little skip and then go. You see like Keenan Allen do that little skip and go. Watch their feet. They take almost like a double step. This is the way that at least I think of it that helps me process this. But he comes up to the top of the route and you see how he steps with his right foot and then he's going to step again with his right foot before the left foot gets down. See how he steps a second time. So it's like right, and he pushes off of that right, the second right step into the left foot jab. Now, why do that? Why take that little skip? Because it changes the tempo of the route, and maybe he's done that skip and then ran an inside breaking route before. Maybe he showcased that on film, but that little change in tempo makes that DB think something is coming. So he does that little skip. He's thinking, okay, I'm expecting a break. We throw this jab to the inside. We sell like we're doing an inside move. That gets that DB off the platform in his turn. So now I got all this space to the outside. I personally think this is one of the most, honestly, best routes of the year so far. And it's a very, very creative move that I think a lot of you guys can do. So it's a double step. You want to take a double step in the direction we are going. So if you're going to the right, you want to step twice with the right foot. Right, left. Let's play it again one more time. You come up to the break point. You go here. Right, left. So just make sure, fellas, I would highly suggest repping this out before trying in a live situation. But once you get the feel for it, this feels very, very smooth, and it's an easy way to make this DB think you're running some type of inside breaking route when you have an outside breaking route versus outside shade zone.